The sun was dipping low on the horizon, casting long, jagged shadows across the dense thicket of Fentanyl forest. The air was thick with the scent of pine and decay, and the faint rustling of leaves seemed to whisper warnings to anyone who dared enter. Two teenage boys, Jake and Ryan, stood at the edge of the forest, their backpacks slung over their shoulders and a mix of bravado and nervous energy crackling between them. "You sure you're up for this?" Jake asked, his voice trembling slightly despite his attempt to sound confident. "I mean, it's just a stupid dare. We don't have to do it." Ryan rolled his eyes, though his hands were clenched tightly around the straps of his backpack. "Come on, man. It's just a story. Slender Floyd isn't real. It's just some creepy tale people tell to scare kids. We'll set up camp, hang out for a few hours, and leave before midnight. Easy." Jake hesitated, glancing at the darkening tree line. Fentanyl forest had always been off limits, a place parents warned their kids about. The legend of Slender Floyd was infamous in their town, a tragic tale of a man who had been killed by police decades ago, his last words, "I can't breathe," echoing into eternity. It was said that his spirit now haunted the forest, seeking vengeance on anyone who trespassed. But Jake and Ryan were teenagers, invincible in their own minds, and the dare from their friends was too tempting to ignore. As the last rays of sunlight faded, the boys ventured into the forest, their flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. They found a small clearing and set up a makeshift camp, complete with a tent, a fire pit, and a few snacks they'd packed. The forest was eerily quiet, save for the occasional snap of a twig or the distant hoot of an owl. Hours passed, and nothing happened. "See," Ryan said, poking the dying embers of their fire with a stick. "Told you it was just a story. Slender Floyd's a myth." Jake nodded, though he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees looming taller and darker than before. Just as he was about to suggest they pack up and leave, Ryan's flashlight caught something strange on a nearby tree. "What the hell is that?" Ryan muttered, walking over to inspect it. Jake followed, his heart pounding. Stuck to the bark of the tree was a piece of paper, yellowed and brittle, as if it had been there for years. Scrawled across it in jagged, scratchy handwriting were the words, "Leave now." Jake's breath hitched. That wasn't there before, was it? Ryan laughed nervously, though his voice wavered. "Relax, it's probably just some prank. Someone came here before us and left it to freak people out." But before Jake could respond, a sound cut through the silence, a raspy, guttural voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I can't breathe." The boys froze, their flashlights trembling in their hands. The voice was faint, almost a whisper, but it sent a chill down their spines. Jake's throat went dry. "Did you hear that?" Ryan nodded, his face pale. "Yeah, but it's probably just the wind or something. Let's just get out of here." They hurriedly packed up their camp, their movements frantic and uncoordinated. But as they turned to leave, the voice came again, louder this time, more desperate. "I can't breathe." Jake's flashlight flickered, then died. Ryan's followed suit, plunging them into darkness. The forest seemed to come alive around them, the trees creaking and groaning as if they were alive. The boys stumbled blindly, their breaths coming in short, panicked gasps. "This way!" Ryan shouted, grabbing Jake's arm and pulling him forward. But no matter which direction they ran, the forest seemed to stretch on endlessly, the trees closing in around them. And then they saw it. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and impossibly thin, its limbs elongated and twisted like the branches of the trees. Its face was featureless, save for thick lips and an impossibly wide nose that seemed to sniff through the darkness. Around its neck was a faint, glowing mark, a bruise that pulsed with an otherworldly light. I can't breathe." The figure rasped, its voice echoing in their minds. Jake and Ryan screamed, their voices swallowed by the oppressive silence of the forest. They turned and ran, their legs burning with exertion. But the figure was always there, just behind them, its presence suffocating. The boys never made it out of Fentanyl Forest. The next morning, their abandoned campsite was found, the tent torn to shreds and the fire pit cold. Scattered among the debris were dozens of pieces of paper, each bearing the same message in jagged handwriting. "Leave now, and if you ever find yourself at the edge of Fentanyl Forest, listen closely. You might hear a faint, raspy voice carried on the wind, a desperate plea that sends shivers down your spine. I can't breathe.